Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Rebecca Callahan, the author of The Dark Yule from the Pumpkin Spice Tales. They're amazing and fun, and it's from a cat's point of view. Welcome, Rebecca, from Vietnam by Skype. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Really happy to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. You have to tell me how you got the idea for this book. So the first chapter, when I went in, I was like, it's a cat. Like, it's from the cat's point of view. What? But I read the whole book and I couldn't put it down. So, after you got over it's a cat telling this story, it was super exciting, it's incredible storytelling. So how did you get inside the mind of a cat? Everything made sense too, crazily. So tell me about that journey.
It actually is quite a journey. It kind of started as a tabletop role-playing game. And it was just a little homebrew, a little something that my husband threw together. I later discovered there is actually a Cats of Cthulhu role-playing game, because there's a role-playing game for everything. And you can check that out if you want. If you're really into this Cats of Cthulhu thing, you can do some tabletop role-playing. But this is just a little thing my husband threw together for my friends and I. And we started to play, but we didn't get very far. And I became intrigued by the whole concept. I've been a big Lovecraft fan for years. And cats play a really important role in his mythos. And so I really wanted to take this and run with it because I thought it was just a totally new perspective on the Cthulhu mythos. So I asked my friends, hey, can I steal your characters and write a book series? And they were like, yeah, sure, go for it. I asked around a little bit. I polled some of my friends and, various fans and things and said, would anybody be interested in this? And the response was overwhelmingly yes. We would love to read Cats of Cthulhu. So I wrote the book, and it's going to be a 5-book series. But the really exciting thing is that this is just the beginning of an expanded universe set in New Kingsport. And as far as getting into the minds of the cats, I had 2 cats. Now I only have 1, but I had 2 cats. And I actually did not grow up with cats, so I think that when I had cats as an adult, I got really interested in their behavior. I paid really close attention to it, and it was actually pretty easy to just imagine myself as one of my own cats and what would they do and how would they communicate their thoughts and their feelings without facial features and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And I did my best to use magic to explain cat behavior. Why does your cat mark the walls and pee on the rug? Well, it's magic. You just don't know that.
Yeah. I was like, wow, I'd love to have a cat to just talk to about this book. Seriously, it's crazy. It's so twisted. And the journey that the cats go on, that was amazing. And how you explained why they're sleeping all the time, that whole other realm, that was brilliant.
I'm glad you think so. Some of these concepts are borrowed from Lovecraft. Mm-hmm. The Dreamlands is already an established thing, but I definitely... I was never very satisfied with a lot of the explanations for the Dreamlands, and so I definitely added my own take on it. Mm-hmm. And other things I borrowed from other fantasies, other mythologies. There's a lot of Buddhist cosmology. Reincarnation plays a big role, as you know, because the cats, everybody reincarnates, but only the cats remember.
I know, that was twisted. I love that part. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Tell us more parts like that, because I think it would intrigue people, especially people who like cats, and I mean, people really like their pets. And this was just
Oh
getting
yeah.
into the head of that and what they do in the background. Reminded me of
Yeah.
Salem, Massachusetts, that whole Kingsport.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's absolutely what it should do. As Kingsport is borrowed from Lovecraft, and he wrote a lot with the Salem and a couple of towns that he invented, and also Providence, that whole area. And so, definitely trying to invoke that haunted, witchy New England vibe. And if you think that plays in this first book, you should see some of the later ones. You really start delving into the history and just how messed up the ancients were. It's like just the craziness that has gone on in those cities for so long. Not in the real world, you understand, but as
Right.
fantasy. It's great fun.
Definitely. So, how does a girl from Vietnam, did you grow up in the States or did you grow up in the Eastern States? I should ask to have that familiarity with the areas.
I was born in Virginia, but I grew up in Colorado. I have visited New England, but a lot of it is just reading and research. Kingsport is actually based on a real town. I'm trying to remember the name of it now, but I basically picked a small town in Massachusetts or New England. And I can't remember which. I picked one. I looked at pictures of the houses. I looked at how big it was and how it was put together, and if there were ponds and water features nearby. I used that as my base for as much realism as possible, because I think that's a really important component of low fantasy, is that things should be as realistic and as close to the truth as possible, except when they're not.
Right. No, you did a really good job with that. I felt like I was a cat following the cat through the journey. With that graceful swagger that they have and the interactions with other animals.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is coming up with new expressions for the cats to say, because of course a lot of human expressions won't fly. You can't say rule of thumb when you're a cat. It wouldn't make any sense, right? You have to say something like bite down on the backbone to mean like, get right into it, or things like that. I like to take a moment when I'm writing those and pause and think, well, how would a cat express this exactly?
That's amazing.
Good fun.
Have you always been a writer?
Basically, yes. Since fourth grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, I say fourth grade because in fourth grade I was writing a book during our free period, and I was very proud of myself because I started it not with Once Upon a Time like a little baby writer, but jumping right into the action like a grown-up writer. And I decided right then I was a writer and this is what I was going to do. And that has been mostly true. I've done English teaching. I was a professor, and I now do a lot of freelance writing, a lot of game writing. But in my heart, I've always been an author and a novelist, and that's finally coming true.
Fruition. So there's 5 in the Spice Tales series, right?
The third book is coming out. There will eventually be 5, possibly more. But this plot arc is going to be 5 books.
Oh, wow. What are you starting on after that? You sound like a planner.
Not entirely sure. Actually, the really neat thing is that my husband, who is also a very talented writer, is co-writing series to go with mine. So this one's all about cats. You feel like you're a cat. You get invested in the cat character, right? So let's say you hate cats. Well, good news. My husband is coming out with a dog series.
Oh, wow.
And it's based on Titan, a Mastiff mix. And he also lives in Kingsport. He knows pumpkin spice. He is involved in the pumpkin spice series in the narrative. The narratives cross over several times. But his main storyline is that he's desperately trying to protect his new master, who's a 10-year-old boy who has attracted the attention of an evil deity, which, as you can imagine, is bad news.
Yeah.
Especially in the Cthulhu mythos. When dark gods start knocking on your door, it doesn't end well for anybody. So poor Titan is trying very hard to save his master.
I thought that was just incredibly well done. The way you weaved the animals around their owners and what they were doing to try to protect them and try to communicate with them. It was so adorable.
I
Because if you've ever had a pet, you could totally relate. And I've had a ton of cats and dogs. So it made me laugh. It made me cringe following them. It really was surprised at how many emotions you were really able to tug out of me as a reader following a cat.
that's great for me to hear. I'm glad.
It was such a fun adventure. Like, it was an unexpected, incredibly fun adventure that I couldn't put down till the very last page.
Awesome. Really, I love hearing that. It means so much to me because I just want people to enjoy my books and take something away from them. And I'm very pleased that you were able to do that.
Oh, definitely. I love the chaoticness.
Yes, I prefer a disorderly magic universe. I don't like magic that has rules and is tidy. I don't like the idea that somebody knows how it all works. I don't think that's how the universe actually works. I think the universe is way more complicated than we will ever comprehend. And so I like making my fantasy universe the same way.
That must come from being a mom. You're a mom, right?
Yeah.
So your universe isn't going to be calm until they're in maybe college or married.
Oh, no. With these two, never.
Never.
No, my children are strong-willed, intelligent, charming, but strong-willed. They are going to have interesting lives.
Definitely.
So I've got a 4-year-old. Yeah, I've got a 4-year-old son and an 18-month-old daughter.
Wow. And you find time to write?
Actually, well, I have to. It is my job. That is my day job, is writing. And so, but carving out a couple hours a day to work on novels is a little bit difficult. The really hard part is finding time for my husband to write as well. He's actually the primary caretaker of the kids. Bless him. He works very hard to keep the house and the kids in order so that I can do the majority of the writing. But we're getting to a point where I need his help to develop this universe as much as we can. So trying to sneak in a few hours for him is incredibly difficult.
Wow. It sounds like amazing teamwork, though.
Yeah.
And a really interesting series. So if you're writing fantasy, is that something that you've read a lot in the past? Or what type of reading do you do to come up with this?
I did do a lot of fantasy reading growing up, almost exclusively. Although, thanks to my father, I also read a ton of sci-fi. And then as I got older, I still do. I've gotten back into it thanks to BookBub. The BookBub deals have made it affordable for me to read again. And
That's true.
so I've really been enjoying that. But to be honest, to relax, I usually read mysteries. I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan, and I love mysteries that I can totally turn my brain off, because even if I try, I can never guess who did it. I mean, I'm the kind of person I'll get to the end of the book and be like, oh my gosh, the butler did it? No, really? No, I'm always surprised, so it's fun for me.
Definitely. And you definitely add that mystery to these novels. It's really twisted in there quite well with the magic. But what surprised me was that you did it in such a way that it was so believable. You know, like I was like, maybe I'll come back as a cat. This is kind of cool, you know?
Hey, maybe reincarnation is real. Maybe you will come back as a cat.
Exactly.
You never know. Yeah.
And I love the owners, like the way that you depicted them, the way that the animals reacted with them. That was so believable. You know, even with
I've always had. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, it was just really believable the way that you twisted it, and the interactions at the vet were hysterical. So I had fun.
Oh, I'm glad you liked that. I had to rework that scene a couple of times to make it realistic. I was like, how do a cat and a mastiff bust out of the vet? Well, here's how. And, you know, for me, I've always had animals, you know, since I was born. Mm-hmm. So, you know, depicting interactions is really natural to me. I can't imagine life without pets. Even traveling as we do, when it would be much more convenient not to have animals, we still have three. Sometimes more. Mm-hmm.
What do you have right now? A cat?
I've got 2 dogs and a
dogs.
cat.
And that's not adding to the craziness of having 2 young children who are probably just as vivacious as you.
Yeah, it's completely insane in my house. But writing is definitely a refuge.
Definitely if you do it full time. And you do script writing too?
Yeah, mostly for games.
For games?
Mostly working, I design game narratives and I write scripts for them. And that's not a field that really existed so much 10 years ago. I mean, game narrative design is a new title. But it's really expanding rapidly. And I don't know if you know that the Choose Your Own Adventure books are coming back as apps. And they're incredibly popular. Also, chat message stories, where it's just two people messaging back and forth makes the story.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really popular as well. And I do a lot of writing for those companies.
Oh, wow.
So it's nothing is ever the same. So I can bounce back between a chat story script and a game plot outline and my own work. And that keeps me from getting bored. Okay. And pays the bills.
So how do you write a narrative for a game? I mean, do you play the game? Do you watch it, how it's unraveling? Or
No. They bring me in first thing. Usually I'm at the very beginning of the game development process. Somebody's got an idea. They may have some designers, they may have some funding. It's at different levels. But very early in the process, they hire a narrative designer to create the story of the game. And whatever ideas they have, whatever game mechanics they want to use, they tell me in advance. And then I can build a story that weaves all of those together while still also being entertaining and believable. And that's my job.
Wow. How long is a game narrative? Because there's all different levels that you go to, so...
The big games, I can't even imagine how long it takes to write that. A lot of the work I do is for smaller games. Sometimes it's even board games or card games, working on those, and a lot of mobile games. But it can be very short. It can be, just a little story around a kind of basic game mechanic, kind of like a Candy Crush ripoff, and I'm just writing a little story around the gaming episodes. Or it can be massive. I'm working right now on a game involving Mongols, and it's huge. They've got, 3 other writers on it.
Oh, wow.
Massive.
So do you guys collaborate when you write the same way you would at, writing a movie script or television show?
Yep. It's all broken up into sections, and people work on different sections. And
that is so interesting. I always wondered how that worked.
It's really fascinating. Yeah, it's not something I set out to do. I did not set out to work in the game industry, but I started doing freelance writing, and my husband has a lot of gaming knowledge, and I have a lot of writing experience. And we kind of put that together, and we're a team, and we work best when we do it together. We just kept getting more game writing jobs, and eventually it just became our thing.
Wow, how did you guys meet?
Oh, we have the best meet cute story ever. We met on Valentine's Day.
You met on Valentine's Day?
At a poetry slam.
Really?
Yeah, really. Now, the less cute part is that he was immediately interested in me, and I was friendly with him, but refused to date him for 2 years.
For 2 years? Wow.
2 years.
How did he win you over?
He was just a really great friend. And by the end, he was my best friend. And eventually I realized that I loved him, and I was in love with him, and I wanted to be with him, definitely more than friends.
Oh, that sounds like a really good story. And
It is a really good story.
How long have you been married now?
Well, we were together for 5 years, and then we got married 6 years ago. So it's a total of 11 years together. Wow. And 6 years married.
Sounds like an exciting journey.
We love it. It's been great. I mean, it has its ups and downs. Being an expat's not always easy. Being a writer's not always easy. Freelancing is almost never easy. But we're really excited to do it together.
Wow. So while you're living in Vietnam, what type of influences surround you in the areas that you live that contributed to the series?
Well, definitely reincarnation and the idea of many realms, many different worlds, a host of spirits and beings who populate the universe in ways that we may not perceive. And I borrowed a lot of that from Buddhist cosmology and also from the sort of local folk religion, both of here and of Korea. And I wasn't borrowing specific entities, but just because obviously, this is set in New England. Mm-hmm. It'd be strange if Vietnamese spirits showed up there, but just the general feeling and some of the ideas about what sort of universe we live in.
Wow. What are some of the myths specific to Vietnam that would have influenced you in writing this?
Well, I started writing this in Korea, so not so much myths specific to Vietnam. But for example, a couple of times in the series, the cats say that there are 108 realms that they're aware of which our world, the material plane, is only one. So we have the material plane is one, and the dreamlands are another plane, and then theoretically there are 106 other realms that the cats are aware of but can't enter or don't know, and they acknowledge that there may be more. And so the number 108 is borrowed from Buddhism because 108 is a very sacred number, and that's why I specified 108.
What does 108 mean in Buddhism?
It means a lot of things. It's, for example, when you're working a traditional mala, it has 108 beats. So you chant 108 times. It's just considered a very kind of a perfect number.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So 108, that's a little specific tidbit from Asia.
That is amazing. There was a lot of interesting twists. How did you get to the level of the cat, especially without going into like detailed minute descriptions? You were able to show how fluid cats can be and the way that they move and the way that they interact with everything going on around them. Where did you really get into that aspect of writing? Because I love the way you did it. You did it in such a way that the reader was just drawn into it. And it wasn't, none of it was like, all right, he's climbing on a fence. You know what I mean? When you read it, everybody would know what I mean because it's so well done. I can't explain it, but the way that you wrote those were really incredible.
Thank you. I guess two things. The first is that what I write, I'm seeing visually play out in my mind. It's like I'm watching a movie and writing what I see. And if that isn't happening, the writing isn't very good. So I usually have to then slow down and really make an effort to picture. And when things are going well, of course, the scene will play out very naturally in my mind. So I try to make things as visual as possible, to not get caught up in literary things or, you know what I mean? But to keep the action moving and to make it so that the reader can see what I see. And then the other part of it is just, I have had cats for 10 years and I've watched how they move. I've watched how they groom each other. I've watched how they leap up and down. And I just put myself in their shoes. When I'm writing, I'm watching a movie, but I am also pumpkin spice, trying to feel and see and smell and hear everything that she does.
You did a fantastic job. Really well done.
Hey, thank you.
What other advice would you have for young people that are interested in writing in the specific areas you do? Because it is a new field, writing for games, writing stories that, bring animals and different things to life in a new and creative way.
I would say that, wow, that's a hard one. I would say read a lot, like most writers say. Read a lot, read what you love, never stop reading, because you learn so much through reading. And then destroy what you read. Cease to find enjoyment in it, right? Those people who are too analytical to ever watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
They just tear it apart. This wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen. You almost have to take that same level of analysis to books, especially a book that you love. You read it and you look into, why do I love this? What did they do? What specifically made this book amazing? And if you could think about a couple of your favorite books that way, it'll really help. You'll discover what kind of style you prefer. And then it's also just don't stop writing, whatever you do. Because The Dark Yule may be my first published book, but it is very, very far from my first book. I wrote my first book when I was 14.
Oh, wow.
And sent it to a publisher who did not reject it immediately. I'm pleased to tell you. But it did get rejected, of course, because it was trash. It was horrible. That book was a compilation of literally every stereotype of fantasy I hate now. From the main character having funny colored eyes to having a prophecy. It's just everything I hate about fantasy I crammed into that book.
Well, it's like you got it all out of your system so you could come up with your own unique style now.
Exactly. I had to get it out of my system. And I had to there were 3 more books, many attempts, and 3 finished books before I wrote The Dark Yule. And with The Dark Yule, things just clicked in a way that they hadn't before.
Well, congratulations. You succeeded.
Thank you. We'll see.
I'm sure you're going to do exceptionally well. And thank you so much for, coming out at night and sharing your story with us and sharing this book. I can't wait to read the rest. So number 3 will be out when?
Number 3 should be out at the end of August.
Oh, perfect.
And number 2 is available as an ebook, but the paperback will be published shortly as well.
Oh, congratulations.
So if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I don't want to get into, a series that only has 1 book or 2 books, or I only read paperbacks, go ahead and buy The Dark Yule and read it. I promise that the paperbacks and the 3rd ebook will be out very soon.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, and you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
My pleasure. Keep asking questions. There are some great news stories coming out, and this is definitely one that you want to check out. Look for R.M. Callahan. Thanks again, Rebecca.
Thank you.